What if the people you trusted most were the ones trying to take everything from you? This is the true-to-life story of Olivia Anderson, a 69-year-old widow who walked into a bank thinking it was just another ordinary Tuesday only to discover her own daughter and son-in-law had a plan to take away the last of her life savings. What happened next shocked everyone. At first glance, it looked like a simple signature on some papers, but behind the fake smiles and soft words was a trap, a betrayal years in the making. Just when Olivia thought she had no way out, a silent cry for help changed everything. This story isn't just about money. It's about family secrets, manipulation, survival, and ultimately, freedom. It's about finding the strength to say no after a lifetime of always saying yes. If you've ever loved too much, sacrificed too much, or been taken for granted by those closest to you, this story will hit you straight in the heart. Stay with me, because what began as an act of desperation turned into the most life-changing decision Olivia ever made. Have you ever looked into the eyes of your own child and realized they weren't asking for your help? They were demanding your surrender. That was the moment I found myself in, sitting at a shiny oak table inside my local bank, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me, the air conditioning humming so cold it felt like it was freezing my bones. But the heat I felt had nothing to do with the room. It was panic, thick and suffocating, rising in my chest as my daughter Vanessa pushed a pen into my hand and whispered, "Just sign, Mom. It's just routine." Her voice was sugar sweet, like when she was 6 years old and begged me for candy at the grocery store. But now she was 35. Her perfume was too strong, and the smile plastered on her face wasn't for me. It was for the security cameras. Beside her sat her husband, Sebastian, his grip on my arm so tight that my skin ached beneath his fingers. His smile matched hers, wide and fake, but his breath was sour, reeking of cigarettes and cheap coffee. "It's nothing, Olivia," he murmured in my ear, his tone smooth enough for anyone passing by to believe him. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. Just think about Caroline, my granddaughter. The only reason I was still here, trapped in this nightmare, pretending that everything was normal. They used her name like a key, unlocking every ounce of guilt and love I had left, twisting it against me. The documents spread across the table weren't routine. They weren't just paperwork. I had seen them. If I signed, I wouldn't just be moving money around, I'd be handing over my entire life. $50,000, every last cent I had left after my husband, Peter, passed away 3 years ago. That money was supposed to carry me through the rest of my days, a fragile safety net I had stitched together after decades of sacrifice. One signature, one stroke of black ink on white paper, and it would all vanish. My hands trembled as I held the pen. The room seemed to close in on me. I looked around desperately, searching for someone, anyone, who might notice what was happening. But the world outside our little table moved on, oblivious. A man in a suit scrolled on his phone. A woman waiting in line flipped through a glossy insurance brochure. The young teller behind the counter typed away at his computer. No one saw me. No one knew that in broad daylight, inside a respected institution, I was being robbed by the very people who should have loved me most. Sebastian's fingers dug deeper into my arm. I stifled a sob that rose uninvited, and his smile never faltered. "Shh," he hissed, his tone laced with threat. "We don't want to make a scene, do we?" His eyes, cold and sharp as glass, told me the truth. This man would stop at nothing. And Vanessa, my Vanessa, the daughter I had nursed, raised, sacrificed for. She sat there, letting him do it. Worse, she encouraged it. Her green eyes, the same shade as her father's, sparkled with practiced innocence as she leaned in closer. "Mom, you have to trust me," she whispered, her hand caressing mine as though this were a moment of tenderness. This is for your own good. You can't manage this much money at your age." Her words were poisoned honey, sweet on the surface, but deadly underneath. The clock on the wall ticked loudly 3:15 p.m., just another Tuesday for everyone else. For me, it was the day my life unraveled in public view, hidden under polite smiles and forced affection. But I wasn't powerless. Not yet. When the bank manager, Mr. Thompson, walked past our table with his calm, professional smile, a spark of hope flared in me. This was my chance, the only one I might get. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would split my chest as I grabbed a scrap of paper from the table. With shaking hands, I scribbled the words, "Help, I'm being coerced. I don't want to sign." I folded the note quickly, my movements clumsy with fear. Vanessa and Sebastian were too busy scanning the documents, double-checking the numbers, greedy like vultures circling a dying animal. I slid the paper toward Mr. Thompson, my breath caught in my throat as he paused, took it, and opened it discreetly. For a second that stretched into eternity, his professional mask slipped. His eyes widened, then steadied with controlled alarm. When he looked at me, I knew he understood. He understood everything. Without saying a word, he gave the smallest nod and pressed a button beneath his desk. The silent alarm, relief, flooded me. After hours of feeling trapped, of believing I had no escape, someone finally saw me. Someone finally knew. But before you can understand the weight of that moment, the fear clawing through my chest, and the desperation in my heart, you need to know how I got here. Because this didn't happen overnight. It was years in the making, years of sacrifices, of yeses that I should have turned into no's, of loving too much and losing myself in the process. My name is Olivia Anderson. I am 69 years old, and all my life I was the woman who gave, who helped, who sacrificed. The woman who believed family always came first. The woman who never learned how to say no. And now, sitting in that bank, pen in hand, I realized just how much that mistake had cost me. People often think that losing yourself happens all at once, like a single tragic event that tears your life apart. But that's not the truth. In my case, it was slow, almost invisible. It happened one yes at a time. From the moment Vanessa was born, I thought my purpose in life was to give her everything I never had. I can still remember the spring morning when she came into this world, tiny, perfect, her green eyes opening for the first time. I held her in my arms and whispered promises into her soft little ears, that she would never lack for anything, that I would always provide, always protect. At the time, those promises felt sacred, but what I didn't realize was that I was binding myself with invisible chains. When Vanessa was 5, she wanted a pink bicycle. It cost $200, money Peter and I didn't really have. Back then, we both worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet, but we skipped meals, sold a few things, and somehow made it happen. The look on her face when she unwrapped it, that radiant smile, was worth every sacrifice. Or at least that's what I told myself. By the time she turned 15, her wishes had grown. A summer camp, $1,500. My grandmother's jewelry became the price tag for her happiness. I sold it without hesitation, convincing myself that memories were less important than my daughter's joy. Then came college. Vanessa had her heart set on a private university. Tuition was $40,000 a year, an impossible sum for a family like ours. But Vanessa cried, begged, told me her dreams would die at a state school. And once again, I said yes. Peter and I took out a loan against the house. I worked extra shifts at the hospital cafeteria, scrubbing tables until my hands cracked, walking home with my feet aching so badly I could barely climb the stairs. For 4 years, I gave up sleep, rest, and health because my daughter wanted more than I could afford. When she graduated, walking across that stage with honors in business administration, tears ran down my face. I thought, this is it. I've done my job as a mother. Now I can finally rest. But rest never came. At 25, Vanessa introduced Sebastian. He was handsome, charming on the surface, but his first words to me weren't polite or respectful. They were about money. "So, is the house paid off?" he asked. That should have been the red flag, the warning sign. But instead of protecting myself, I ignored it. Vanessa was in love, and love blinded me. Their wedding was extravagant $50,000 we didn't have. Vanessa insisted, "Mom, I'll only get married once." I want it to be perfect. So we took another loan. The wedding was beautiful, yes. She looked like a storybook princess. But even then, I noticed Sebastian's eyes scanning the wealthier guests, as if he were measuring the room for opportunities. After their honeymoon in Europe, another expense we covered, the phone calls began. At first, it was small things. The refrigerator broke. The car needed repairs. Rent was overdue. And each time, my answer was the same: yes. But little by little, those yeses carved pieces out of me. When they wanted to buy a house, they had no savings, no good credit. Vanessa's words still echo in my ears. "It's an investment, Mom. A step toward the future. Just help us with the down payment. I promise we'll pay you back." It was $40,000. I drained the retirement fund Peter and I had built for 2 decades. That check I handed her shaking, scared but smiling felt like the biggest yes of my life. And the biggest mistake. They moved into a beautiful 2-story house with 4 bedrooms and a backyard. Vanessa hugged me, sobbing with joy. "You're the best mom in the world," she said. "I'll pay you back every cent." Of course, she never did, and the calls kept coming. Furniture for $10,000, a fence for $3,000, kitchen renovations for $8,000. Every time I hesitated, Vanessa twisted the knife. "Mom, don't you want your granddaughter, Caroline, to grow up in a nice house? Don't you want her to have the childhood she deserves?" Caroline, my sweet granddaughter. She became the ultimate weapon in Vanessa's arsenal. How could I say no when the request was wrapped in the face of that little girl? Ballet classes, piano lessons, summer camps, special outfits. Every dollar bled from my account into theirs until I had nothing left for myself. And when Peter's health declined, when diabetes forced us into expensive treatments, medications, and diets, I should have asked Vanessa for help. My sister Clara even told me, "Olivia, you've given her over $100,000. She should help now, but I couldn't, because I had trained myself to believe my only role was to give, never to ask." The day Peter died 3 years ago, half my soul left with him. I sat in that empty house surrounded by silence and bills, realizing I had nothing left. The life insurance gave me $50,000 that was all I had to survive on. I swore I would be careful this time. I swore I would finally learn to say no. But promises are easy when no one is asking, and Vanessa always asked. So here I am, sitting in a bank years later, pen in my hand, realizing that my life of saying yes had led me here, to this table, under these lights, with my own daughter trying to strip me of the last thing I had left. Sebastian's hand was like an iron clamp on my arm, his fingers digging into the soft skin beneath my sleeve. At first glance, to anyone watching, it looked almost affectionate-like, a supportive son-in-law helping his mother-in-law steady her hand for a signature. But beneath the surface, the truth was as dark as his cold eyes. His grip wasn't support, it was control. It was a warning. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he whispered, his breath hot against my ear, carrying the bitter scent of cigarettes and stale coffee. His lips curved into a practiced smile for the cameras, but his tone was sharp enough to cut. I glanced at Vanessa, hoping, praying that she would see my discomfort, that she would stop him. She was my daughter, after all. The little girl I had held in my arms, the teenager I had sacrificed sleep and health for, the woman I had supported through every poor decision. Surely she would step in. Surely she would protect me. but Vanessa only leaned closer, her manicured nails lightly brushing against my hand as she pushed the pen toward the signature line. Her perfume, sweet and expensive, filled my nostrils, mixing with the salt of my own fear. "Mom," she said softly, her voice dripping with feigned tenderness, "you have to trust me. This is for your own good." Her smile never wavered. Not once. Not when Sebastian's grip tightened. Not when my hand trembled. Not even when a muffled sob escaped my throat. She smiled because she knew how to perform. She smiled because she had learned long ago that appearances mattered more than truth. To the security cameras mounted in every corner of the bank, she was the perfect daughter patient, gentle, persuasive. To the world around us, she was simply guiding her elderly mother through a routine transaction. No one could see that she was orchestrating the theft of everything I had left. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear my arm from Sebastian's hold and shout for help, but the fear held me still. His grip reminded me that he wasn't above hurting me, and Vanessa's smile reminded me of something worse, that she would let him. My mind drifted back to all the times she had smiled like that in the past, when she convinced me to pay for her wedding dress, when she begged for money for a new kitchen, when she insisted Caroline needed ballet lessons. That smile had always been my undoing, a carefully sharpened weapon hidden behind pearly white teeth. Now, sitting in this bank, I realized the truth. Vanessa's smile was not a daughter's love. It was a mask, a disguise she wore while she stripped me bare, piece by piece. Sebastian leaned closer, his voice low and poisonous. "Think of Caroline," he said. "Do you really want her to suffer because you're being stubborn? Caroline? Always Caroline. The trump card. The word that had forced me to open my wallet more times than I could count. My granddaughter's name dangled between us like bait, and for a moment I almost gave in. My grip on the pen loosened. My heart faltered. Because I did love Caroline with every part of my being. But then Sebastian squeezed harder, and the sharp pain in my arm jolted me back to reality. Love didn't feel like this. Family didn't feel like this. I looked at Vanessa again. Her smile was unwavering, her eyes sparkling with false innocence. But I saw something beneath them, something sharp, something greedy, something cold. For years, I had ignored it, convincing myself she was just stressed, just overwhelmed, just caught up in life. But now, with Sebastian's claws in my arm and her hand pressing the pen closer to the paper, I saw the truth clearly. She wasn't a helpless daughter. She was a partner in crime. The bank around me blurred, the hum of cash machines and quiet chatter fading into white noise. All I could see was my daughter's smile and my son-in-law's grip, the two of them working together like predators who had patiently stalked their prey. And I was the prey. The clock on the wall ticked louder, each second stretching like a lifetime. 3:15, 3:16, 3:17. The world moved on while I sat frozen, a puppet in their performance. Vanessa tilted her head slightly, her tone as smooth as silk. "Mom, you've trusted me all your life." "Why stop now? You can't manage this kind of responsibility anymore. Let me take care of it for you." Her words hit harder than Sebastian's grip. Let me take care of it. For 35 years, I had been the one taking care of her, working, sacrificing, bleeding, and now she dared to say she was taking care of me, as if stripping me of my last savings was some act of mercy. Sebastian's fingers dug deeper, and I flinched. His smile widened, the perfect counterfeit of affection. To anyone watching, we were a family, warm, supportive, close. But beneath that facade, I could feel the truth. His grip was a leash, and her smile was a blade. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I realized that if I signed, I wasn't just giving away money. I was giving away myself, my dignity, my future, my independence, everything I had left of Peter, of our life together, of the years we had fought so hard to save for gone with one stroke of ink. Number. Not yet. Not like this. The pen hovered above the paper, my hand trembling under their pressure. But my eyes shifted past Vanessa's mask of a smile and Sebastian's suffocating grip to Mr. Thompson, the bank manager, walking toward us with a polite expression. My heart surged with hope. This wasn't over. Not yet. The pen hovered above the paper, its tip shaking like a needle caught in a storm. Sebastian's hand pressed harder against my arm, his grip a warning, a command. Vanessa leaned closer, her eyes locked on me, her smile sweet but suffocating. To everyone else in the bank, we were just a family completing a simple transaction. To me, it was a battlefield, and I was losing. My heart raced so violently I thought it might burst. The fluorescent lights above seemed brighter, almost blinding, their glare making my temples throb. The steady hum of the air conditioner, the clicking of heels across the tiled floor, the shuffle of papers, all of it merged into a suffocating white noise. I wanted to scream, to shout for someone, anyone to see what was happening, but the cameras were watching, and Vanessa knew it. Her performance was flawless. Every gesture, every soft word, every reassuring smile painted her as the loving daughter. Beside her, Sebastian played his role too, pretending to be the protective son-in-law. To an outsider, I was the frail old woman, simply overwhelmed by paperwork, guided by my caring family. But beneath the table, my hand trembled. And in that trembling was a truth too big to ignore. I was being robbed in plain sight. I tried to pull my arm free, but Sebastian's grip tightened like a vice. His voice slithered into my ear again. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." The words chilled me more than the air conditioner above. For the first time, I truly understood. He wasn't threatening to embarrass me. He wasn't just pressuring me. He was warning me. If I resisted too much, if I drew attention, he could hurt me. And Vanessa, she would let him. My throat tightened, and a strangled sob slipped out before I could stop it. "Shh," Sebastian hissed, his smile never breaking. "We don't want to make a scene, do we?" That was when I saw him. Mr. Thompson, the bank manager, a kind-faced man in his late 50s with a neat suit and a professional smile. He was walking toward our table, clipboard in hand. His steps were calm, measured, but when his eyes met mine, something shifted. His smile faltered just for a second, but it was enough. Hope flickered inside me like the first spark of fire in the dark. He approached us with practiced courtesy. "Is everything all right here? Can I help with anything?" His voice was polite, neutral, but there was a weight behind it, a quiet authority. Vanessa turned her radiant smile on him immediately. "Oh, everything's fine," she said, her tone dripping with sweetness. "We're just helping Mom finalize a little transfer." Sebastian loosened his grip slightly but didn't let go. He leaned back in his chair, playing casual, but his eyes stayed cold and sharp, locked on me. This was my chance, my only chance. I glanced at the papers on the table. My hand shook as I picked up the pen again, but not to sign. Instead, I slid a blank slip of paper toward me. My pulse hammered in my ears as I lowered my head, shielding the movement from Vanessa and Sebastian with my arm. Quickly, desperately, I scrawled the words, "Help. I'm being coerced. I don't want to sign." My handwriting was shaky, almost illegible, but it was all I could manage with Sebastian's looming presence beside me. I folded the slip once, twice, then slid it discreetly toward Mr. Thompson as Vanessa leaned across the table to adjust the documents. For a terrifying moment, I thought he wouldn't see it, that he would brush it aside with the rest of the papers, that my silent cry would go unanswered. But then his eyes caught the folded note. He picked it up, pretending it was part of the paperwork. He opened it carefully, discreetly, and I saw it, the flicker in his expression. His professional mask slipped for the briefest second, replaced by controlled alarm. Our eyes met. In that instant, I knew he understood. Completely. He gave the smallest of nods, almost imperceptible, then shifted his hand under the desk. My stomach twisted. Had he ignored me? Or worse, was he signaling to security to remove me instead? But then I saw it. His finger pressing something unseen beneath the table. A silent button. The alarm. Relief washed over me so suddenly, I almost collapsed in my chair. For the first time that day, my lungs filled fully with air. Someone had seen me. Someone believed me. Vanessa was still smiling, oblivious. Sebastian leaned closer, whispering, "Come on, Olivia. Just sign. Don't embarrass yourself." But now, for the first time, I wasn't alone. I had lit a spark in the darkness, and that spark was about to change everything. As Mr. Thompson's discreet nod settled into my bones like a lifeline, I felt the crushing grip of Sebastian and the blinding smile of Vanessa blur for just a moment. My mind drifted away from the fluorescent lights, the cold sweat clinging to my palms, and the suffocating weight of the pen. I refused to move. Instead, I slipped backward in time, back into the life that had shaped me into this woman who had always said yes. I remembered the first time Vanessa cried for something I couldn't afford. She was 5 years old, standing in a toy store window, her little green eyes, Peter's eyes, shining at the sight of a pink bicycle. It cost $200, a fortune for us then. Peter and I were each working 2 jobs, barely scraping together enough to pay the mortgage and utilities. But when Vanessa pressed her small hand into mine and whispered, "Please, Mommy, I'll be the happiest girl in the world if I have it," my heart cracked. I sold the gold locket my grandmother had given me. I told myself it was just a piece of jewelry, but that bicycle, it was happiness I could buy for my child. And in that moment, her smile felt worth more than any heirloom. That was the first time I traded part of myself for Vanessa's happiness. And once you do it once, it becomes easier. Too easy. I thought of the summer camp when she was 15, $1,500. I didn't have it, but she wanted to go because her friends were going. I told myself, she'll only be young once. So I sold another piece of my grandmother's wedding ring. A family heirloom turned into a campfire sing-along and canoe rides. Vanessa came home with a tan, new friends, and stories of laughter. I told myself it was worth it. But as the memories pressed against me now in that cold bank chair, I realized something painful. Every yes I gave had chipped away at me, piece by piece, until there was almost nothing left that was mine. Her college had been the heaviest weight. $40,000 a year. "Mom, it's my dream," she cried. "Please don't make me go to a state school." What will my friends think? I had looked at Peter, his tired eyes rimmed with red from working double shifts at the factory, and I had said yes. We mortgaged the house. We worked until our backs broke. I cleaned tables in the hospital cafeteria until midnight, my shoes filling with sweat, my knees screaming. All so Vanessa could graduate with honors. At the ceremony, when she walked across that stage in her cap and gown, I cried tears of pride. I thought the weight I carried had finally lifted, that she would stand on her own, that all the sacrifices had built her a future where she wouldn't need me anymore. But the truth was, every yes had only taught her one thing, that I was a well that never ran dry. Sebastian entered her life soon after. I never trusted him. From the moment he asked if our house was paid off before even shaking my hand, I knew he saw me not as family, but as an opportunity. Still, Vanessa's happiness was always my compass. She looked at him with those same pleading eyes she once used on me, and once again, I said yes. Yes to the lavish wedding. Yes to the down payment on their house. Yes to the endless emergencies that seemed to follow them wherever they went. Each time, I told myself I was helping them find stability. But in truth, I was giving them permission to lean on me until I could no longer stand. And then came the hospital nights. Peter's body weakening, his medicine costing more than our insurance could cover. I worked until I bled, but still, when Vanessa called with her problems, I said yes. I gave her money that should have gone to her father's care. Even now, sitting in this bank with Sebastian's nails pressing into my arm, I felt the crushing guilt of those choices. I had chosen my daughter's wants over my husband's needs, over my own needs. Peter never complained, not once. Even as he injected himself with insulin we barely afforded, even as I cut corners on his diet so Vanessa could remodel her kitchen. I remembered him lying in bed one night, his voice weak but steady as he said, "Olivia, you can't keep giving until there's nothing left of you." But I had, and now, here I was, at 69 years old, my husband gone, my savings dwindled, my health fragile, and my daughter, the same child I had promised to protect forever, was sitting across from me, smiling while her husband bruised my arm, trying to take the last thing I had. The weight of memory pressed down harder than Sebastian's grip. Every yes echoed in my ears, a chorus of sacrifices I had made, each one pulling me closer to this moment of near ruin. I looked at Vanessa again, at the smile that had once meant joy, but now looked like hunger. And for the first time in my life, I wondered, had every yes I gave her only taught her how to destroy me? The pen trembled in my hand, the memories thundered in my chest, and somewhere deep inside, a voice I hadn't heard in years whispered, "It's time to say no." The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the very walls of the bank were closing in on me. Sebastian's grip had not eased, his fingers still dug into my arm like talons, leaving behind bruises I knew I would see later in the mirror. Vanessa sat across from me, her lips stretched into that same smile, a smile so polished, so practiced, it could have belonged to a politician on election night. But inside me, something was shifting. For 69 years, I had bent under the weight of obligation, of guilt, of sacrifice. I had carried everyone else's needs while burying my own. And in this sterile bank, under the unforgiving fluorescent lights, I felt all those years pressing against me. I could no longer breathe under them. The pen hovered over the line again. The black ink gleamed like a pit, ready to swallow me whole. One stroke, and it would all be gone. Not just my savings, but my dignity, my independence, my husband's legacy. "Come on, Olivia," Sebastian muttered, his voice a poisonous hiss disguised beneath his smile. "Just sign. Don't drag this out." His tone was calm enough for the cameras, but the menace in it was unmistakable. I could feel it ripple under my skin. Vanessa leaned in closer, lowering her voice to that honeyed tone that had trapped me so many times before. "Mom, please. Trust me. Think about Caroline. Don't you want her to have a good future?" Caroline. Always Caroline. The name that had unlocked my wallet more times than I could count. The innocent face that had been wielded like a weapon. My granddaughter's laughter, her crayon drawings of me as a giant with arms wide enough to hug the world, it all pierced me. For a moment, my hand nearly betrayed me, but then I caught my reflection in the glass window of the bank office. An old woman, weary, small, fading. A woman who had spent a lifetime giving until there was nothing left. Number. Not anymore. I lowered the pen, slowly, deliberately. Sebastian's grip tightened, his jaw clenching. "What do you think you're doing?" His teeth stayed hidden behind his smile, but his voice cracked with frustration. Vanessa's smile faltered for the first time. Her eyes narrowed, a glint of desperation breaking through. "Mom, please don't make a scene." And that was it, the final straw. For years, I had swallowed my voice. For years, I had smiled through the bruises on my heart, through the exhaustion in my bones, through the endless giving. But the silence, the pretending, the smiling while suffering, it ended here. A tremor of anger rose inside me, strong and foreign. My voice shook at first, but it grew steadier with each word. "Stop smiling, Vanessa." Her face froze as if the mask had cracked. "Stop pretending this is for my own good. Stop using Caroline's name to manipulate me. And stop letting your husband hurt me while you sit there and watch." The words tumbled out, raw and unpolished, but they were mine, my voice. Sebastian leaned back slightly, his smile now strained. "Careful, Olivia," he whispered. "You don't want to regret this." I turned to him, meeting his cold stare with a strength I didn't know I still had. "The only thing I regret," I said, my voice sharp, "is ever trusting you." The silence that followed was heavy, crackling with tension. For the first time, Vanessa's smile faltered completely. She looked at me not with affection, not with persuasion, but with fury. A fury born of years of entitlement now slipping through her fingers. I could feel the blood pounding in my ears, my chest rising and falling with the weight of years of suppressed rage and pain. This was it, the breaking point. The moment that would decide everything. And then, like a lifeline cast into a storm, Mr. Thompson's voice cut through the tension. Calm, firm, professional. "Excuse me," he said, stepping closer to the table. "I need to review some details of this transaction before we proceed." Sebastian's eyes flicked up sharply, suspicion flaring. "What kind of details?" "Everything's in order. Mrs. Anderson wants to transfer the money to her daughter's account. It's a family decision." But Mr. Thompson didn't blink. His eyes met mine again, steady and reassuring. "Mrs. Anderson," he said, "would you mind accompanying me to my office for a private verification?" It's standard procedure for transactions of this magnitude. The room tilted around me. A lifeline, an exit. My heart surged, but Vanessa's hand shot out, clutching mine with surprising force. "That won't be necessary," she said quickly, her voice tight but still trying to sound sweet. "My mother has already decided. Haven't you, Mom?" Her smile returned, but it was cracked now, fragile. The mask was breaking. I looked at her, the daughter I had raised, the woman I had sacrificed everything for, the first time. I didn't see my little girl. I saw the stranger she had become, and I knew, deep in my bones, that this was the line, the one I would not cross. I looked at Mr. Thompson, then back at Vanessa, and I whispered the word that had been buried inside me for decades. No. The air shifted. The silence that followed was sharper than any scream. Vanessa's eyes widened, Sebastian's grip loosened in shock, and Mr. Thompson extended his hand. This was the breaking point, and I had chosen my side. Mr. Thompson's hand hovered above me, steady, inviting, a lifeline disguised as simple professionalism. My legs felt like they were made of stone, but I forced myself to rise. For the first time all afternoon, Sebastian's grip slipped away. The warmth of his hand was gone, replaced by the sting of bruises blooming beneath my skin. Vanessa's fingers clamped onto my other hand immediately, her nails digging into my flesh. Her voice, though soft, carried a sharp edge. "Mom, don't make this difficult. Just sign the papers and let's go home. Caroline is waiting for us, Caroline." Again. Her name was a dagger plunged into my resolve, but this time, instead of piercing me, it hardened me. "I'll be right back," I murmured, my eyes never leaving Mr. Thompson's. His calm gaze anchored me as if to say, "Trust me, you're safe now." Sebastian shifted in his chair, his smile cracking just slightly. "Don't take too long," he muttered. His voice was casual for the room, but the warning beneath it was clear. Mr. Thompson guided me through the rows of desks, past the curious eyes of tellers and customers pretending not to notice the tension. My legs trembled with every step, but with each one, I felt a little freer, a little more in control. His office was small, tucked away in the corner. A desk, a bookshelf lined with binders, a framed picture of his wife and 2 children. A tiny cactus sat on the windowsill, its green arms stretched toward the light. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, the noise of the bank faded into muffled silence. Mr. Thompson gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please sit down." I sank into the chair, my hands trembling in my lap. For the first time, I felt the weight of what had just happened. My heart was still racing, my throat still tight, but there was also something else, a fragile thread of safety. He sat across from me, his expression shifting from professional neutrality to something gentler. "Mrs. Anderson," he said, his voice low and steady, "tell me what's really going on." And then, like a dam breaking, the words poured out of me. I told him everything. The years of sacrifice, the pink bicycle I couldn't afford but bought anyway, the college tuition that had nearly broken Peter and me, the down payment for their house, the endless loans and emergencies that were never repaid. I told him about Sebastian's debts, about his cold questions the first time we met, about the way he had grabbed my arm so tightly today I could barely breathe. I told him about Vanessa, my daughter, how she had always smiled as she asked, how she had always wrapped manipulation in sweetness, how she had learned exactly which buttons to push, and how, like a fool, I had always pressed yes. By the time I finished, tears were sliding down my cheeks, hot and unrelenting. "Those $30,000, I whispered, my voice breaking. "They're all I have left. If I lose them, I lose everything. My home, my independence, my life." Mr. Thompson listened without interrupting, his pen moving quietly across a notepad. His eyes never wavered from mine, and in them I saw no judgment, only understanding. When I finally fell silent, exhausted, he leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Anderson," he said gently, "what you've just described isn't just family pressure. It's financial coercion. In some cases, it qualifies as elder abuse. The word struck me like thunder. For years, I had told myself it was my duty as a mother, that saying yes, even when it hurt, was what love required. But here, in this small office with the cactus on the windowsill, I realized the truth. This wasn't love. This was exploitation. "What can I do?" I asked, my voice a trembling whisper. "She's my daughter. I don't want her in trouble, but I can't live like this anymore." Mr. Thompson nodded slowly, choosing his words carefully. "First, we are canceling this transaction. That's immediate. Second, I'll document everything you've told me and put alerts on your accounts. No one can move your money without your physical presence and verification. And third, I'll provide you with resources, legal aid, support groups, hotlines, so you're not alone in this." My throat tightened, tears blurring my vision again. But what if she hates me? What if I lose her forever? He paused, then asked the question that cut through me like a knife. "Mrs. Anderson, are you ready to say no? Truly say no, even if it means your daughter gets angry?" The room seemed to tilt. My breath caught. For 69 years, I had been the woman who always said yes. Yes to the bicycle. Yes to the camp. Yes to the wedding. Yes to the house. Yes to every demand, every plea, every manipulation. If I stopped being that woman, who would I be? I thought of Peter. I thought of his tired hands, his quiet strength, the way he had once told me, "Olivia, fear is the tool manipulators use. Don't let them own your life." And I thought of Carolyn, sweet, innocent Carolyn. What lesson was I teaching her if I allowed this to continue? That love meant sacrifice until you had nothing left? That it was acceptable to use and hurt the people who cared about you? I straightened in my chair, my trembling slowing. "Yes," I said softly, then louder. "Yes." I'm ready. Mr. Thompson's lips curved into a faint, reassuring smile. He reached for the phone on his desk. "Then let's begin." And in that small office, for the first time in decades, I felt something unfamiliar and powerful rise inside me. Not fear, strength. When I stepped out of Mr. Thompson's office, it felt like stepping into a different world. Just minutes before, I had been trembling, desperate, cornered. Now, though my legs still shook, something inside me had shifted. A resolve I had buried under decades of compliance had finally risen to the surface. Vanessa was waiting, her face pale and tight, her phone clutched in her hand as if she'd been mid-argument with someone. Sebastian leaned back in his chair, but the way his fingers drummed against the table betrayed his agitation. They both snapped their eyes toward me the second I appeared. "What took so long, Mom?" Vanessa asked, her voice laced with false sweetness. "We're going to be late." "Caroline's waiting at home. She's excited to see you." The way she said Caroline was no accident. That name had always been her weapon, but this time, it didn't land. I sat down slowly, folding my hands on the table. Mr. Thompson lingered behind me, arms crossed, a quiet pillar of support. 2 security guards stood at a polite distance, but close enough to remind Sebastian he no longer had control. "I'm not going to sign," I said. The words came out steady, sharper than I expected, slicing through the air like glass. Silence followed. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that feels dangerous, like the pause before a storm breaks. Vanessa blinked, her mouth parting slightly as if she hadn't heard me correctly. What did you say?" I said I'm not going to sign. I'm not transferring my money. Her eyes widened, flashing between shock and fury. "Mom," she hissed, her smile straining for the cameras, "don't be ridiculous." "We already discussed this. It's just a temporary transfer." "It's not temporary, Vanessa," I replied firmly. "It's my retirement money and I'm keeping it." Sebastian's chair screeched as he stood abruptly, his fists clenched so tightly I could see his knuckles whiten. "What do you mean you're keeping it?" he snapped, his voice low, dangerous. One of the guards immediately shifted closer, and Sebastian froze mid-step, forced back into his place. Vanessa's fake smile cracked, revealing something raw and venomous beneath. "Mom, you don't understand. We need this. The mortgage, the bills, Caroline's ballet." I cut her off. "I've given you everything. The bicycle, the camp, the tuition, the wedding, the house. I gave until it nearly killed me, and I never asked for anything back. But this is all I have left, and I'm done." Her green eyes, those same eyes I once adored in her baby face, now glistened with tears. But I saw them for what they were, performance tears. She was good at this. She always had been. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling with practiced fragility. "After everything we've shared? After all the love we've given each other? You're really going to abandon us?" "Love?" The word shot from my lips like a bullet. "You call threatening me love? You call it love when your husband bruises my arm? You call it love when you trick me into coming here to steal every last dollar I have?" Her tears faltered. Around us, people had begun to notice. An older woman in line clutched her purse tighter, her eyes darting between us. A man in a suit paused mid-step, phone forgotten in his hand. The bank was no longer pretending not to watch. Vanessa's lips trembled as she leaned closer. "Fine. Don't give us all of it. Just half. 10,000. That's all we need right now." I shook my head. "No, there is no emergency. Sebastian has a job. You have a house. You've built your lives around my money and it stops today." Sebastian sneered. "What about your granddaughter? You're really going to let Caroline suffer because you've suddenly decided to be selfish?" That word, selfish, stabbed deep. It had haunted me my whole life. I had built my identity on proving I wasn't selfish, on giving and giving until there was nothing left. But now, for the first time, I saw it clearly. "It's not selfish to protect what's mine," I said firmly. "It's survival. Caroline will not suffer. You two are her parents. Start acting like it." Vanessa's tears turned to something else, pure, crystallized rage. Her lips curled as she spat. "Fine, Mom. If that's what you want, don't come crying when you're old and sick and all alone in that empty house. Don't call us when you need help." Sebastian leaned forward, his eyes cold. "Yeah, we're not your personal health insurance." Their words echoed, meant to wound, meant to terrify me into compliance. And for a flicker of a moment, they did. I imagined myself sick, alone, no family at my side. But then I remembered Peter's words, echoing across time. Fear is their weapon. Don't let them own your life. I lifted my chin. If that's the cost of keeping my dignity, then so be it. Mr. Thompson's voice broke the tension, calm, professional, yet firm. "That will be enough. This transaction is canceled. Mrs. Anderson has made her decision." He gestured toward the guards. "Please escort these two off the premises." Vanessa's face twisted, a mask of hatred I had never seen before. "This isn't over, Mom," she spat as one of the guards touched her elbow. "You'll regret this." "I promise you will." Sebastian muttered something under his breath, his jaw tight, his glare locked on me until the guards led them both out through the glass doors. And then silence. My body slumped back into the chair, trembling. But for the first time in years, I wasn't trembling from fear. I was trembling from relief, from freedom, from the realization that I had finally said no and meant it. Mr. Thompson sat down beside me. "How do you feel?" I let out a shaky laugh, tears slipping down my cheeks. Scared, I admitted, but also free. Like I can finally breathe. And sitting there, in that bank full of strangers, I realized the truth. I had just changed the course of my life. The door closed behind me with a hollow thud, and for a long moment I just stood there, leaning against it, listening to the silence. My house, my so-called sanctuary, suddenly felt cavernous, like a tomb echoing with ghosts I had tried so hard to ignore. The bank had been full of people, buzzing with life, with witnesses to my courage. But here there were no cameras, no guards, no Mr. Thompson standing tall at my side. It was just me, the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. For decades, this house had been filled with voices: Peter's gentle laughter, Vanessa's constant demands, Caroline's bright giggles. Now every corner seemed to accuse me. "Look what you've lost, Olivia." I set my purse on the counter and sank into the living room chair. My body still trembled from the confrontation, but a heavier tremor now settled in my chest. Fear, not of Sebastian or Vanessa, but of the emptiness itself. I looked at the photographs lining the shelves. There was one of Peter holding baby Vanessa, his face beaming with pride. Another of Vanessa in her graduation gown, the day I thought all my sacrifices had finally paid off. There was even a photo of Caroline on her first day of kindergarten, her backpack nearly bigger than she was. I reached for the frame with Peter in it, my thumb brushing over the glass. "I did it, Peter," I whispered into the stillness. I finally said no. But the house didn't answer. The silence pressed in harder, until I could almost hear Vanessa's last words reverberating off the walls. "Don't come crying when you're old and alone in that empty house." And here I was, alone, in this empty house. I tried turning on the television, hoping for noise to drown out my thoughts, but every voice sounded tinny, fake, like a poor substitute for the warmth I was missing. I turned it off. The silence returned. Heavier now, like a blanket smothering me. I wandered into the kitchen. There were 2 mugs still sitting by the sink, one Peter's, one mine. I hadn't moved them since the morning he passed away. The sight of them made my chest ache. Was this it? Was this what the rest of my life would look like? An endless series of quiet mornings, empty afternoons, and silent nights, broken only by phone calls meant to manipulate me into giving away the last pieces of myself? My phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up with Vanessa's name. For a moment, my heart leapt out of habit, out of longing, out of a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd call to apologize. But I knew better. The call went to voicemail, and moments later, a text arrived. "Mom, please, we need to talk. Caroline misses you. She doesn't understand why you're shutting us out." The words clawed at my chest. Caroline. Sweet, innocent Caroline, my granddaughter, the only piece of Vanessa I couldn't bring myself to resent. I wanted to pick up the phone. I wanted to hear her voice, to hear her laugh. But I also knew the truth. Vanessa was using her again, using the child's name like a key to pry open the locks I had just put on my heart. I put the phone down face first. For the first time, I realized that silence wasn't just emptiness. It was also space. Space to breathe, space to think, space that I hadn't had in decades. I stood and began moving through the house, this time not looking at it as a tomb but as a canvas. The walls weren't echoing accusations. They were waiting for new memories. My memories. I walked into the bedroom I had shared with Peter. His sweater still hung over the chair. I pressed it to my face, inhaling the faint trace of his scent. "I miss you," I whispered, "but I think you'd be proud of me today." The tears came then, hot and uncontrollable. They weren't just tears of grief, but of release. For the first time in years, I wasn't crying because I was trapped. I was crying because I was free, even if freedom was terrifying. When the sobs subsided, I sat at Peter's old writing desk and pulled out a notebook. My hands shook as I began to write, but the words spilled out faster than I expected. Today, I said no. Today, I chose myself over the endless demands. Today, I realized that love without respect is not love at all. It's manipulation, and I will not mistake one for the other anymore. I underlined the last sentence twice. As I set down the pen, I noticed the phone blinking with another voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Not tonight. Tonight, the silence was mine. The house was still empty. The loneliness was still there. But for the first time, I didn't see it as a punishment. I saw it as a beginning. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. The silence in the house didn't magically turn into peace overnight. At first, it was sharp, heavy, and suffocating. Every corner reminded me of what I had lost: my husband, my daughter, my role as the ever-giving mother who held the family together. But as the hours passed, I began to notice something else hidden inside that silence: space. Space I had never allowed myself before. On the third morning, I woke up earlier than usual. No one was calling me. No one was demanding money for bills, lessons, or new emergencies. For the first time in decades, I asked myself a question I had long forgotten. What do I want to do today? The answer didn't come right away. It felt strange, almost selfish, to even consider. But that morning, I made myself a full breakfast eggs, toast, fresh fruit without rushing, without calculating who else needed to be fed first. I sat by the window, sipping my tea, watching the sunlight stretch across the garden. For a moment, I let myself simply exist. Later that week, I remembered something Mr. Thompson had given me in his office, a flyer for a local support group. At first, I had shoved it into my purse, too embarrassed to consider it. A support group? For me? I had always been the strong one, the helper, the problem solver. Admitting I needed support felt like weakness. But one night, as I stared at the ceiling, Vanessa's words echoed in my mind. "Don't come crying when you're old and alone." The fear clawed at me again, and I realized I didn't want to face this new life completely by myself. So the next Tuesday, I found myself walking into the back room of the library. 12 chairs arranged in a circle, most of them already filled. Men and women of all ages, though many looked like me older, tired, but with a flicker of hope in their eyes. The facilitator, a kind woman named Sandra, welcomed me with a smile that felt genuine. "Take a seat. Only share if you feel ready," she said. At first, I just listened. Story after story spilled out, stories that sounded so much like mine it was eerie. A man whose brother had drained his retirement account for gambling debts. A woman whose daughter convinced her to put her house in her name, only to sell it behind her back. Another who, like me, had poured her life savings into a child's endless emergencies until she had nothing left. With every story, something inside me loosened. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't just helping family. It was abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse. When my turn came, my voice cracked as I began. I told them about Vanessa, about Sebastian, about Caroline being used as a bargaining chip, about the bank, the pen, the bruises on my arm, about the word I had finally found the courage to say no. I expected judgment. I expected someone to tell me I was a fool for letting it go on so long. But instead, they nodded. Some even smiled through tears. "You were brave," one woman whispered. For the first time in years, I believed it. That night, I walked home lighter. The house was still empty, but it didn't feel like a punishment anymore. It felt like a space I could fill with something new, and slowly I began to rebuild. I signed up for a painting class at the community center. At first, my hand shook as I held the brush, but soon the colors began to flow. Landscapes, flowers, sunsets, things I had never taken the time to notice when I was too busy working extra shifts to pay for someone else's dreams. I started volunteering at a local shelter for women. Listening to their stories, offering comfort, I realized that I could still help people. But this time, it was on my terms. Not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but from a place of strength. Even my finances changed. Without Vanessa's constant demands, I found I actually had money left at the end of the month. I began saving again, setting aside for real emergencies, not manufactured ones. For the first time, I even considered traveling, something Peter and I had always dreamed about but never afforded because we were always bailing out our daughter. But perhaps the most important change wasn't what I did, it was how I felt. Each morning, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who wasn't just Vanessa's mom. I saw Olivia, a woman who had worked hard, loved deeply, and finally chosen herself. Of course, the pain didn't disappear. Vanessa's angry words still echoed sometimes. The memory of Sebastian's grip still made me shudder. Caroline's absence left a hole in my heart. But alongside the pain, there was something new. Pride. Pride that I had stood up. Pride that I had chosen survival over silence. Pride that, even at 69, I had proven it was never too late to change. One evening, as I watered the flowers in my garden, I caught myself humming. Just humming. A small, silly tune with no purpose. And I realized I was happy. Not because anyone else was taken care of. Not because I had given something away. I was happy because, for the first time in my life, I was taking care of me. It's strange how, when one door closes, another really does open. For weeks, I sat in my house thinking I had lost everything: my daughter, my granddaughter, my sense of family. I thought the silence would swallow me whole. But slowly, almost without me realizing it, life began offering me something new, something better. It started with my sister Clara. She had always been the more skeptical one, the one who used to tell me, "Olivia, you're giving too much. One day, you'll regret it." After the bank incident, I finally confessed everything. How Sebastian had hurt my arm, how Vanessa had used Caroline as a pawn, how close I had come to losing every last dollar. For the first time, Clara didn't scold me. She didn't say, "I told you so." Instead, she held my hand and said, "You've been carrying this burden alone for too long. You don't have to anymore." And just like that, I realized family wasn't only defined by who shared your blood. It was defined by who showed up, who listened, who stood by you when the storm hit. A week later, Clara invited me to dinner at her house. There I met her son, Arthur, whom I hadn't seen in years, and his daughter, my great niece, Caroline. Not my granddaughter, Caroline, but another Caroline, tall and kind-eyed, with a quiet strength about her. The coincidence of her name felt like fate, as if life were reminding me that not all Carolines would be used against me. She listened to my story with patience far beyond her years. "I know what it's like," she admitted softly. She told me about her own struggles with a mother who had manipulated her financially for years, draining her savings and destroying her trust. "It nearly broke me," she confessed, "but it also taught me something important, that love isn't real if it's tied to money. Real love stands on its own." Her words hit me like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. For so long, I had equated giving with love. But here was this young woman telling me the exact opposite, that sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for the other person. That night, as we drank tea together, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: belonging. A new bond was being woven, thread by thread, not out of obligation or manipulation, but out of honesty and shared scars. Over the weeks that followed, Caroline, my great niece, became a constant presence in my life. She'd stop by with books she thought I might like. She'd call just to check in, her voice warm and genuine. Sometimes we'd sit in my garden together, talking about everything from family to dreams to simple things like recipes. And for the first time, I felt like someone was visiting me, not for what I could give, but for who I was. But the real turning point came one Saturday afternoon. I was painting in the community center when I saw a little girl peeking through the doorway. She had the same green eyes as Vanessa, the same curious tilt of the head. My heart almost stopped. Caroline, my granddaughter. She stepped inside holding a crayon drawing in her small hands. "Grandma," she said in a trembling voice, "I found your letters." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Vanessa had hidden the letters I had written to her over the years, but somehow my granddaughter had discovered them. She told me she had read every single one, each word scribbled in my shaky handwriting. "You said you loved me. You said it wasn't my fault," she whispered. I dropped my brush and wrapped her in my arms, tears spilling down my cheeks. "It was never your fault, my love." Never. She clung to me, her little shoulders shaking. "Why did Mommy say you didn't want to see me anymore?" What could I tell her? That her mother had twisted the truth to keep her loyalty? That she had been used as bait in a cruel game? Number. She was too young to carry that burden. Instead, I cupped her face in my hands and said, "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but I will always want to see you. I will always love you." That day, I realized the most important bond of all hadn't been lost. It had only been hidden, waiting for the truth to set it free. From then on, Caroline visited whenever she could, sometimes in secret, sometimes with Clara's help. We baked cookies together, painted flowers in my garden, and shared long talks where she asked questions far too wise for her age. And little by little, I saw her starting to understand what I had finally learned myself. Love doesn't come with a price tag. The old bonds, the toxic, manipulative ones, had broken, but in their place, new ones were forming, stronger, healthier, built not on money, but on trust. And as I tucked Caroline's latest drawing into my scrapbook, a picture of the two of us holding hands beneath a rainbow, I realized something profound. I hadn't lost my family. I had simply discovered who my real family truly was. It had been nearly 6 months since the day I walked out of that bank with my dignity intact. 6 months of silence from Vanessa and Sebastian, 6 months of rebuilding myself, discovering new friendships, and learning to live without the constant pull of their demands. I thought maybe, just maybe, they had finally given up, that they had moved on to find someone else to lean on, someone else to exploit. But one rainy Thursday afternoon, just as I was settling into my armchair with a book, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there she was, Vanessa, my daughter. Her hair was damp, plastered against her face, and her green eyes, once so full of confidence, looked sharp but desperate. She wasn't alone. Behind her stood Sebastian, arms crossed, his expression guarded. "Mom," Vanessa began, her voice trembling in that familiar mix of sweetness and urgency. "We need to talk." For a moment, the old instinct rose in me, the reflex to invite her in, to wipe her face, to make her tea, to fix whatever crisis she carried on her shoulders. But I caught myself. I wasn't that woman anymore. "What is it, Vanessa?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, steady. She hesitated, then gestured toward Sebastian. "Things have been hard. We lost the house." The words hung in the air like heavy fog. I remembered the $40,000 I had given them for the down payment, the endless furniture, renovations, and bills I had covered, the sacrifices I had made to build that home for them, now gone. My heart ached, but I didn't let it show. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. Sebastian stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "We just need a little help, just until we get back on our feet. You've always been there for us, Olivia. Don't stop now." The way he said my name, not Mom, not mother-in-law, but Olivia Cold, transactional, made my stomach twist. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, Caroline doesn't understand. She asks why we can't go back to the house, why things are different now. Please, for her sake, help us." Just this once, there it was, the card they always played, my granddaughter. I closed my eyes for a moment, steadying myself. In the past, that name alone would have broken me. But now, after months of support groups, new bonds, and Caroline's secret visits, I had learned to separate love from manipulation. When I opened my eyes, I looked straight at Vanessa. "You say, just this once, but it's never just once. It's been years of just this once. Do you know how much I've given you? Over $100,000. And what has it taught you, Vanessa?" She flinched, her tears spilling over. "That I can count on you," she whispered. "No," I said firmly, my voice rising with the strength of truth. "It taught you that you could use me. That my love was something you could buy with guilt and promises. But that's over now." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "So you're just going to let your own daughter and granddaughter live on the street?" "Don't you dare," I snapped, surprising even myself with the fire in my tone. "Caroline will never be on the street. She has me, she has Clara, she has people who love her. But you," I pointed at him, my hand steady, "you've dragged her mother down with your selfishness and lies, and I won't be dragged down with you." Vanessa's lip quivered. "Mom, please. I know we've made mistakes, but we're family. The word struck deep, but I didn't let it weaken me. Family doesn't hurt family. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't use fear and guilt as weapons. What you've been doing isn't love, Vanessa. It's abuse." Her eyes widened as if the word had slapped her. "Abuse? You think I abused you? After everything you've done willingly?" "Yes," I said without hesitation, "because love should never be about what someone can give. It should never come with bruises on my arm or threats whispered through smiles. I may have been blind before, but I see clearly now." The rain outside pounded harder, as if the world itself echoed my words. Vanessa covered her face with her hands, sobbing. For the first time, I couldn't tell if it was real grief or another performance. Maybe it was both. Sebastian muttered something under his breath, grabbed her arm, and pulled her toward the car. "Come on, Vanessa." She's not going to change her mind, but before she turned away, Vanessa looked back at me, her eyes red and wet. "If you close this door, Mom, don't expect me to come back." I took a deep breath. The old Olivia would have panicked, begged, tried to bargain. But now I stood tall. "If you ever come back, Vanessa, It should be because you want to see me, not because you want my money. Until then, goodbye." I closed the door, my hand trembling, my heart pounding. On the other side, I heard her sobs fading into the rain, Sebastian's voice low and angry, then the sound of their car pulling away. I leaned against the door, tears spilling down my own cheeks, not from guilt this time, but from release, because I knew something with absolute certainty. I had chosen myself, and that choice, as painful as it was the only way forward. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Vanessa had shown up at my door, soaked from the rain, begging one last time for money. I thought maybe that would be the end of it, that she would disappear into the shadows of her own choices. But then, one Saturday morning, I heard a soft knock on my door, not the sharp, demanding kind Vanessa always used, but a hesitant, almost shy tap. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. "Grandma," Caroline whispered, standing there with her school backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked taller, older somehow, but her eyes, those same green eyes she shared with her mother, were filled with uncertainty. "Caroline," I gasped, pulling her into my arms before I could stop myself. She hugged me tightly, and for a moment I just breathed in the scent of her hair, a mix of shampoo and crayons. "Mom doesn't know I'm here," she confessed quickly, pulling back just enough to look into my face. "I told her I was at a friend's house. But I needed to ask you something." Her words carried a weight far too heavy for a 10-year-old. "Of course, my love," I said gently, leading her inside. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I had once written all those letters she never received. She placed her hands flat on the table, her fingers trembling. "Grandma, is it true? Did Mommy and Daddy try to take all your money at the bank?" The question hit me like a stone to the chest. For years, Vanessa had painted her version of the story, twisting the truth, hiding the letters, using Caroline as a shield. And now, here was my granddaughter, brave enough to demand the truth for herself. I took a deep breath. "Who told you that, sweetheart?" "No one," she said quickly, "but I hear things. Mommy and Daddy fight all the time. They talk about money, about you. They think I don't understand, but I do. And..." Her voice broke, her eyes filling with tears. "I found your letters, Grandma. The ones you wrote to me. Mommy hid them, but I found them in her closet." My throat tightened. "You read them?" She nodded. "Every single one. You said you loved me. You said none of it was my fault. But Mommy always told me you didn't want to see me anymore, that you didn't care about us. Why did she lie? Oh, my sweet girl." I reached across the table, taking her small hands in mine. "Caroline, your mom, she made choices, wrong ones. She thought if she told you the truth, you might not stand by her. She wanted to protect her version of things, but none of it was ever your fault. Not once." Her tears spilled over, but she held my gaze. "So, it's true? They tried to take everything from you?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, they tried, but I didn't let them." For a moment, silence hung between us. Then she whispered, "I don't understand. Why would Mommy do that to you? You always helped us. You always gave us things I swallowed hard." "Because sometimes, Caroline, people get so used to taking that they forget how to stand on their own. Your Mommy forgot what love really means. She started thinking it was about money, not about care or honesty." Caroline's shoulders slumped. "But I love her. She's my mom. And you should," I said quickly, brushing her hair back from her face. "She's still your mom. Love doesn't disappear just because someone makes mistakes. But it's okay to see the truth, too. You can love her and know that what she did was wrong." She sniffled. "And I love you, Grandma. Not because of money, just because you're you." The words cracked me open. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tighter than ever. "You don't know how much that means to me," I whispered into her hair. That's all I ever wanted, for you to know I love you no matter what." We sat like that for a long time, just holding each other. Finally, Caroline pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Grandma, when I'm older, when I can make my own choices, I want to come live with you sometimes. Not for gifts, not for money. Just because I like being with you," I smiled through my tears. "I would love that more than anything." Before she left, she pulled a folded paper out of her backpack. "I made this for you." It was another drawing. This time, it was of the two of us sitting in a garden. But unlike the older ones where I was drawn as a giant figure with arms that stretched forever, this one was different. We were the same size, sitting side by side, both smiling. "I made us equal," she explained shyly, "because I don't want you to feel like you always have to carry me. I want to walk next to you." I couldn't speak. My tears blurred the picture, but I knew I would treasure it for the rest of my life. That day, Caroline left on her bicycle, her little legs pedaling hard down the street, and as I watched her go, I felt something shift inside me. The old wounds still ached, but they no longer defined me. Because in my granddaughter's courage, in her search for the truth, I saw a new beginning. A bond not built on money, but on honesty, trust, and love. For the first time, I believed it. Our story wasn't over. It was just beginning again. This time, the right way. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind of day Peter used to love. The sun streamed gently through the curtains, casting soft golden light across the living room. I had been cleaning, more out of habit than necessity, when I stumbled across an old wooden box tucked away in the back of the closet. I hadn't seen it in years. It was Peter's. My hands trembled as I pulled it down, brushing away a thin layer of dust. Inside were little mementos movie stubs from our first date, birthday cards and photographs yellowed with time. And then, at the very bottom, an envelope with my name written in Peter's unmistakable handwriting, Olivia. The sight of it nearly stole the breath from my lungs. My husband had been gone for 3 years, and yet here was a piece of him I hadn't known existed. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my fingers shaking as I slid the letter out. The paper was worn, as though it had been folded and refolded many times before. I unfolded it carefully, my heart pounding. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to say everything I wanted before my time came. You know me. I'm not always good with words in person, but there are things I need you to hear, things I never want you to forget." Already my eyes blurred with tears. His voice was in every word. I could almost hear him speaking, that calm steadiness that had always anchored me. "First, I want to thank you for our life, for the laughter, for standing by me through every storm. I know I didn't say it enough, but you were my everything. Every sacrifice you made, every extra shift you worked, every meal you skipped so Vanessa could have what she wanted, I saw it. I admired you for it, even when I worried it was too much." I pressed the paper to my chest, sobbing quietly. He had noticed. All those nights I thought I was invisible. All the times I believed no one saw the exhaustion in my bones he had seen. "But Olivia, there's something else, and it's important. I need you to hear me, even if it's hard. You have given so much of yourself to our daughter that sometimes I feared there would be nothing left for you. I know your heart, my love. It's endless, but even endless wells can run dry." The words cut deep. They were the truth I had been running from for decades. I don't know what Vanessa's future will be. I hope she learns gratitude. I hope she learns responsibility. But if she doesn't, if she ever crosses the line from needing your help to using your kindness against you, Olivia, you must find the strength to say no. I gasped, clutching the letter tighter. It was as if he had been watching over me even now, guiding me through the storm I had just lived. "Please promise me this. Live for yourself, too. Go on the trips we never took. Buy the things you always said were too expensive. Laugh without guilt. Rest without apology. Love yourself as fiercely as you loved me and Vanessa, because you deserve that, Olivia. You always have. My tears fell freely onto the paper, staining the ink. And one last thing. Don't be afraid of being alone. You're stronger than you think. And love, real love, never leaves. It stays with you, in memories, in lessons, and in the people who come into your life when you least expect it. You will never truly be alone, my darling. Forever yours, Peter. By the time I finished, I was weeping openly, not with despair, but with something softer. Relief, release. For so long, I had carried guilt for finally standing up to Vanessa, for refusing to let her drain me dry. But here, in Peter's own words, was validation. He had seen the pattern long before I did. He had known this moment might come, and he had given me his blessing to choose myself. I folded the letter carefully, holding it against my heart. In that moment, I felt Peter's presence stronger than I had in years, not just as a memory, but as a guiding hand, reminding me that my life wasn't over. Later that evening, I placed the letter in a small frame and set it on the nightstand beside my bed. Every time I looked at it, I knew I would remember his words, not as a farewell, but as a roadmap. Because this wasn't just a letter from the past, it was a compass for the future. And for the first time, I believed with all my heart. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was truly living. The morning after I found Peter's letter, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. For so long, my life had been about survival, managing bills, caring for others, patching up wounds that never seemed to heal. But now, for the first time, I could see the road stretching ahead of me, open and unclaimed. The sunlight poured through the curtains, warm and golden, as if even the day itself was welcoming me into a new chapter. I made myself coffee, not the cheap, instant kind I had been drinking for years out of habit, but a rich blend I had bought on a whim. It tasted like possibility. Peter's letter still sat on my nightstand. Every word was etched into my mind. Live for yourself, Olivia. Rest without apology. Love yourself as fiercely as you loved us. For years, those words would have sounded selfish to me, but now they felt like permission. No, like a command. I began small, a walk through the park without rushing, buying fresh flowers for the house, not because anyone was visiting, but because I wanted their beauty for myself. I signed up for a cooking class at the community center and laughed like a child when my first attempt at homemade pasta turned into a sticky mess. Each step was like unlearning decades of conditioning. I didn't have to say yes to every demand. I didn't have to apologize for wanting joy. And I didn't have to justify spending my own money on my own happiness. But the biggest step came one quiet afternoon when I stood at the travel agency window downtown. Posters of Italy, Spain, and Greece filled the glass, landscapes bursting with color and promise. My heart beat faster as I imagined myself there, not as someone's mother, not as someone's provider, but simply as Olivia. I stepped inside. The young woman at the desk looked up with a smile. "Where would you like to go?" The question stunned me. For nearly 70 years, no one had ever asked me that without an agenda attached. Not where should we go as a family, not what do you think Vanessa needs, but simply, where would I like to go? I heard myself say, Italy. My voice was steady, certain. We spent an hour planning. Florence, Rome, and a few days in a small Tuscan village. A painting workshop, vineyard tours, slow mornings with coffee overlooking the countryside. For the first time in my life, I was investing in something just for me. When I left the agency with the tickets in my hand, I felt like a bird who had just remembered how to fly. Of course, the doubts whispered at night. What if Vanessa was right? What if I got sick? What if people judged me for spending my savings on something so frivolous? But then I would read Peter's letter again, and his words silenced every fear. Don't be afraid of being alone. Love real, love never leaves. The day of departure came sooner than I expected. Standing in the airport with my suitcase, I felt both terrified and exhilarated. Around me, families bustled with children, couples clutched boarding passes, business travelers tapped on laptops, and there I was, a 70-year-old widow on her first solo trip. When the plane lifted off the ground, I pressed my forehead to the window and whispered, "This is for us, Peter." For everything we never did, Italy was more than beautiful. It was healing. I walked the cobblestone streets of Florence, marveling at art I had only ever seen in books. I stood in the Colosseum and felt the weight of history, stronger and older than any family drama. In Tuscany, I joined a painting class and discovered that my shaky hands could create something vibrant, something alive. And every evening, as the sun dipped below the vineyards, I sat with a glass of wine and thought of the journey behind me. The fear, the manipulation, the guilt, and now, freedom. I wrote postcards to Caroline, the granddaughter I still hoped would one day understand the choices I made. Not promises of money, not apologies for boundaries, but words of love, pure and unconditional. "Grandma is finally living her adventure," I wrote, "and I want you to know you can too." When I returned home weeks later, I wasn't the same woman. My house felt different, lighter, as if it too had been waiting for me to claim my life. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, sharing my story with others who had been manipulated by those they loved most. I joined a support group for seniors, not because I was weak, but because I knew strength could grow in community. And slowly, I built a life that was mine, a life of choice, not obligation. Looking back now, I realized something profound. My journey wasn't just about saying no to Vanessa. It was about saying yes to myself, to hope, to possibility, to the belief that even at 70, life can begin again. The road ahead is still uncertain. There will be lonely days, yes, but there will also be sunsets in new places, laughter with new friends, and the quiet joy of knowing I no longer need permission to exist fully. This is the journey ahead, and for the first time, I can't wait to see where it takes me. And that's how Olivia's life was transformed. From a scared mother being pressured in a bank to a woman who finally reclaimed her voice, her dignity, and her freedom. She learned the most powerful truth of all. Saying no doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you start loving yourself enough to stop the abuse. But now I want to ask you, what would you have done in Olivia's place? Would you have had the courage to stand up to your own family? Stories like this remind us that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with strangers, but within the people we call family. Some of you may feel anger right now at Vanessa, at Sebastian, at the cruelty of betrayal. Some of you may feel relief, joy, even admiration for Olivia's courage. And maybe, just maybe, you'll feel inspired to protect your own boundaries too. Because in the end, this isn't just Olivia's story. It's a lesson for all of us. True love never comes with conditions, and no one has the right to take away the life you worked so hard to build. If this story touched you, made you cry, or made you think, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful, life-changing stories. And remember this, even in your darkest moments, one decision can change everything. Olivia's journey proves that it's never too late to take your power back.